everybody, welcome back to Fridays Live. My name's Ellie, I work for Findmypast, and yeah, we have a really packed agenda for you today. Wherever you are in the world at the moment, I hope you're keeping well and I hope you're keeping safe. This week we are going absolutely nuts for newspapers. We have made some incredible updates to our newspaper search experience. And to tell you about them, I'm going to be welcoming on a little bit later two members of our product team, Chris Brake and Martin Stocks. So be sure to stick around for that. You guys have said to me that you like having product team members come on to chat. You've met Chris before, but you've not met Martin. So, you know, we're all going to be nice. We're all going to be nice to him, really. And it's a great chance for you to meet some of the people who are directly responsible with improving the experience for Findmypast and for you, and how we can make finding your ancestor stories easier than ever before. If you do have any questions for Chris and Martin about newspaper search, advanced search features you'd like to see, anything like that, please do add them into the comments and we'll hopefully take a few questions later on. We have the lovely Rose in the comments as well, so please say hi to her. And then before I welcome some of you who I can see commenting away already, next week, hopefully, we're going to be announcing something really exciting. So do you remember over the summer, we ran a competition and the idea was that you would submit a really cool family history story and then the winner would be able to star in their very own family history adventure on film. Well, we have the winner and we are going to be announcing the winner and showcasing their short film next week. It's their journey of a lifetime. I think you're going to love it. The first time I watched it back, I cried. It was beautiful. It's a really good reminder that you don't need to be a celebrity chasing royal roots to be the star of your own show. So that's what we're doing with that. We also have two questions of the week this week, and I'm going to get those in now because we are very tight on time today. So two questions of the week, you can answer both, you can just answer one. They are, what brick walls have newspapers helped you break down? Or have you ever been down a newspaper rabbit hole and what did you find? And shout out to Rose for coming up with these questions of the week. Because I frantically messaged her earlier going, I can't think of a question of the week. And Rose, as usual, unflappable Rose was able to give me those. So there we go. Now, I'll just remove those for a sec while I welcome some of you. And then we can get into the records, because we've got lots to cover today. Okay. Right, Andrew, a little damp in Lancashire, nowhere near what's been reported around the Dundee area. Hope you are all safe. Yeah, I'm a bit further south, so although it's very blustery here, it's nowhere near where it is further north. Some of my other colleagues are further north, and yeah, it's not ideal, but hopefully everybody's keeping safe. Daphne joining us from a squally, showery Somerset. Ros from a chilly Massachusetts. Oh, I've got so many of you. We've got Chris joining us. Hello. Karen, afternoon from a train on my way home from lunch with my second cousin once removed. Oh, that's exciting. Have you met this cousin before? Or was it a first time meeting? I'd love to. Jenny Kemp from a very wet Norfolk. Hello. Janet in North Wales. Hi. So many of you. Lots of you here. This is fantastic. Okay. Yes, and Rose has popped the questions of the week into the chat as well, in case you need to refer back to them. Jeff's saying it's gloomy but dry in Devon. Calvin's saying it's very wet in St Helens. I can imagine. Okay, so I'm going to delve right into the new records because I've got quite a bit to get through, and I went down a bit of a rabbit hole with these new records, but I'm hoping you're going to find it useful nonetheless. So let me just pop my slides back up and we will delve straight in. Okay, so we have got this week some new Dublin Church of Ireland record collections. We've got baptisms, marriages and burials, and we've got they're quite old. So some of them, the earliest ones we've got that are marriages in 1618, and then the latest date they run up to is the baptisms, which is 1865. And there's around 23,000 each for the baptism marriages. And then for the burials, that's a slightly bigger collection. There's just over 44,000 records in there. And just for a little bit of background here, these These records are quite interesting because they open up a window into the established Church of Ireland community in Dublin over the course of around, what did we say, 150 years or so, just over 150 years. So Dublin was the capital city of Ireland and was the second city of the British Empire at the time. And the population of Dublin city rose drastically, one or the other, in the 18th century. And that meant the religious proportions of the population changed as well. So the earlier date, you're talking overwhelmingly people were Church of Ireland. But as the population expanded, it meant that more people were Catholic. So what I'm going to tell you with this is, just because you think your ancestors were one denomination or the other, don't rule out checking these, because interfaith marriages were quite common, and children from interfaith marriages as well were not unusual. So you can sometimes find people of multiple faiths in records like this. So don't ignore them. Go and take a look, no matter how certain you might be. And there's a couple of different parishes that are included in these collections as well, published by the Parish Register Society. And they are St. Catherine, St. John the Evangelist, Church of St. Michan, I think, St. Nicholas Without, St. Patrick, and then Parish of St. Peter and St. Kevin. And then I've put the year ranges on there as well. Now, I know I've just said to you that I was certain, because my Irish ancestors, I believe, were Catholic. And I don't think that I'm going to find them in these records, but I decided to go and have a look anyway. And some of them are really, oh, I've gone too far. Some of them are really old. So this is one for Charity Walsh, and she was baptized in 1642. And then you've got Bartholomew Walsh, who married Mary Hatfield in October 1724. Now, wee Barty actually appears in some other Irish records, because I liked the name Bartholomew Walsh. I have Welshes in my family tree. This is probably not a relative, but I was intrigued, so therefore I had to fall down the rabbit hole, of course. And I did wonder that because his marriage is quite early, I thought initially that I wouldn't be able to find anything else about him. I was absolutely wrong. So he actually appears in the Ireland Court of Exchequer books many times, 10 or 12 times, I think, between the 1750s and the 1760s. And then he also appears in a wills collection in 1772, which I think is him, but there's another Bartholomew Walsh who dies in 1784. So it's one or the other, I think. Now, I did a little bit of reading, and the Exchequer was one of the most senior law courts in Ireland, one of the 4 royal courts of justice. And these particular courts deal with landowners, merchants, business owners, professionals, and maybe some of the wealthier farmers. And I say wealthier farmers because it could be quite expensive if you were from anywhere else in Ireland to bring your case to the Court of the Exchequer in Dublin. So unless you've got the money to travel, you probably wouldn't go. But yeah, just because the court was based in Dublin doesn't mean that it didn't hear cases from all over Ireland. So on the left-hand side here, this is where he first crops up in 1753 in the Court Exchequer records. And I've got absolutely no idea what it's referring to, but there's some other some names there. There's something about, I don't really know, some sort of bill. I don't know. I didn't really have time to delve into it more. I really, really wanted to, though. I also included on the right-hand side, this is from the Chancery Court records in 1703, excuse me, 1703? 1803? I think it's 1803. No, it is 1703. I'm mixing up my numbers. And I don't think this is our Barty, because that would be too early for him, but it may be his father, it may be his grandfather. I don't actually know, but I included it because I thought it was really, really pretty with all the lovely squiggles on it. Okay. He last appears in the Exchequer books in 1770, and then what I think was his will in 1772 tells me that he was a Dublin merchant. And if he was a Dublin merchant, then that's not unusual for him to be appearing in the Exchequer court records. But it got me thinking, the way I initially thought I wouldn't be able to find anything else about lovely Barty. I'm going to keep calling him Barty because Bartholomew is a little bit of a tongue twister for me. Because I thought I wouldn't find any more records for Barty, it reminded me that there are so many other incredible record collections on Findmypast. my heritage, my ancestry, family search and beyond, even all the offline records. There's so much to dig into. So I thought I'd do a wee refresher for me and for you on some of the really cool Irish collections that we've got on Findmypast. Oh yes, this was the Wills record. I forgot to say the one where it says merchant. And as you see, there's two different Bartholomew's there. One's a merchant and one's a gent. I think it's probably the top one, the 1772 one. Okay, so my 5 top favourite Irish record collections. So the first one is the Petty Sessions Court Registers. Now, there are over 22 million records. It's a huge collection. And these included witnesses, victims, and those accused, mainly for cases such as money owing, domestic violence, domestic disputes, and public order offences. And for all of these records, I searched with the name Francis McKenna, because I've got a Francis McKenna in my family tree, and I think it's on my father's side. And I don't think this is him, but I just use that name anyway. So we see here Francis McKenna. He appears as a witness in this case. I think he's a witness in this case, but he appears a couple of different times in these records, as both as a witness and as a complainant for various different cases. And here you've got him. No, he's a claimant here. He's claiming wages from Thomas McKenna along with Edward Burns, and this is in 1843. There's so much detail here. This is a really, really great set. You've got original images, stunning handwriting. What more could you want? Now, I can't talk about Irish records without talking about the dog licenses, so they have to make an appearance. So you've got around 7 million records here with names, addresses, details about their dogs, which were probably working dogs because you had to have a license to own a dog. So again, I've looked for Francis McKenna, and again, this is probably not my relation, but I think it's the same one that was referenced in the Petty Sessions records, because the address is the same, the area he's come from is the same, and it's also around the same sort of time. This is 31st of March, 1873, and if it's not him, it's probably a close relation. And it tells us that he kept a male black collie. It's just another reminder that I don't have a dog and I really want one. Anyway, number 3, we've got Irish prison registers. So I use the same name again, but it's very, very unlikely this is the same chap. Again, really, really detail rich, original images. You get the crime, the sentence, a physical description, marital status, literacy, trade, religion. That's a lot of detail about one person. It's not just one person, it's like pages and pages for different people. So Francis McKenna, he got 7 years for larceny, aged just 17. He was 5'8", he had grey eyes, dark brown hair, and a fair complexion. He was single and could read and write, and he was a painter and a Protestant. Again, that's a lot of detail for one record. That's pretty impressive. And then we've got the Griffiths valuation. I don't talk about this enough. This is a great collection. It's often considered a census substitute. The details are for those who rented or owned land. You get its value plus the names of any landlords, extra buildings, and so on and so forth. Obviously, you get your original images, but don't sleep on the maps. So from the transcription, you get a link through to the maps that accompany this valuation. You will probably have to zoom in to find the specific area you're looking for. But yeah, well worth a look. And then I've got one more for you. So these are the Dublin Workhouse Admission and Discharge Registers for 1840 to 1919. There's over 1.5 million records covering around 80 years. And because of the high levels of poverty at this time in the Dublin area, many people would have passed through the workhouses. So you can discover things like their name, age, religion, previous addresses, occupation, and the names of any other family members. So this particular Francis McKenna, again, I don't think many of these are connected, and I don't think that is the guy from my tree, but he was, I think, 28, he was single, and he was a turner, I think, and this guy was Roman Catholic. And it tells me as well that he entered the workhouse on the 10th of July, 1865, and then left on the 26th of August, just over a month later. That is a massively whistle-stop tour of some of the cool Irish record collections we have. That's just 5, and there are many, many more. I almost did 10, but because we have quite a packed agenda today, I decided not to do 10. Now let's do newspapers, because I'm sorry if I'm reeling through this. So we have that should I say 106,000 new pages, not 106 new pages. Over 106,000 new pages to delve into this week, and our new title of the week is the Commercial Daily List. Despite its probably quite dull name, it's actually a very notable title. It was one of England's earliest trade publications. So it's not necessarily a consumer-facing title. Trade publication circulated within a particular industry or community, and it means that the content that you're looking at might look different to how your local newspaper might look, and it might offer some insights into sort of the local goings-on business-wise in the local area. So like this clipping, for example, it's got where you can buy cinnamon, I think, and some coffee, I want to say. Yeah, there you go. Food. This one's mainly on food. Okay. It was established in 1832, and it contains things like adverts, reports, and news from the world of commerce. And it was headquartered on Mincing Lane. Isn't that a great name for a lane? Although it was centred in London, it was circulated up and down the country, all the way up apparently to Liverpool, Manchester, and Birmingham. So yeah, it might not be what you normally look for from a newspaper. We sometimes like finding stories about our ancestors and some catchy headlines. It's still well worth a look in terms of contextual details. Like you might find the prices of the cinnamon, for example, or the coffee, or where you can buy it from. And I suppose if you have an ancestor who was in a particular trade, you might find their name referenced in this. So we've added pages for 1869 to 1870. I imagine more will be following. And I would be really, really keen to learn if you find an ancestor or something about your ancestor's trade in this title. We've also updated three titles as well. So the Lurgan Mail, the Belfast Newsletter, and the Derry Journal. Okay, that really was a whistle-stop tour of new records. My apologies. Let's do question of the week. So I can see you guys already adding lots of stuff into the comments. So I'm going to scroll all the way back up, and hopefully we've got some questions of the week to answer. Okay, let's go and have a gander here. Okay, I'm scrolling. Okay, Janet. Hiya, Janet. Okay, I was researching a school football team in 1919. Rabbit Hole was one of the referees, was a witness mentioned in a mysterious death in a half-built house. How bizarre. Where was that? I'd like to know where that was. But it just goes to show when you've got well-known figures in the local community like that, they do tend to crop up every now and then in various different aspects of the community, which I find really adorable. Karen says, just solved my Sydney Dyer mystery, found his parents, one more third great-grandfather mystery to go. I'm so pleased for you, Karen. That's exactly what I want to hear. Because I was thinking about this earlier today. We often say that when you start your family history or you're just going down a particular line for the first time, what you really need to be looking at are your birth, marriage and death and your census records. I think we should throw newspapers in there. I think they should be maybe not the first thing you go and search, but certainly quite soon after. I think it should be more of the norm that newspapers aren't just forgotten about or left until last, or go, oh God, do you know what? I've exhausted all other avenues. I'll check the newspapers. Check them sooner. Check them sooner. Hopefully you guys can all get on board with me with this. Okay, Kim says, when trying to find my long time elusive great-grandfather, I found his alias in the newspapers, from furiously driving his horse to gambling and later death. Goodness me. This is what's really, really tricky when you have an ancestor who seemingly disappears from the records the further you go back. And sometimes all you need to come across is like one thing that gives you the indication that they went by another name. And then that just can open up a whole other set of doors for you. I love it when that happens because it gets incredibly frustrating. Tara says, Brick Wall, a story from the Cape Times in 1884, picked up by an Irish paper, led to smashing of long-standing family brick wall, confirmed soon afterwards by DNA matches. I love this. This is great. This is what I mean. They're so good at this, the newspapers. The example, I'm speaking at a company meeting later on today, but I've pre-recorded it, so I know exactly what I've said. But I've used an example of my grandparents' wedding announcement in, when did they get married? In the 60s? Yeah, in the 60s. And I've got loads of photographs of my grandparents' wedding because I went and just, you know, dug them out from my grandmother's house while she wasn't looking. But when I came across this description of their wedding announcement, I must have talked about this a million times before, but it tells me the material of her dress, the fact that her veil was held in place by orange blossoms, the fact that she carried a bouquet of white carnations. Like, I can't really tell that from the photo. I mean, the photo's stunning, don't get me wrong, but I can't really tell that. So it is literally adding colour to what I already have. I think that's just a perfect example. Another one for Karen, newspaper rabbit hole, a dodgy cousin who had 3 bigamous marriages and went to prison for I don't know if I should giggle, but I do love a story like that. A story with a little bit of scandal involved. I'm massively up for. Liam, hi Liam, I hope you're okay. Liam wasn't, I hope you won't mind me saying, he wasn't feeling very well yesterday. So I was messaging him about something else and he's like, I'm not feeling very well, Ellie. Can you wait till tomorrow? I'm like, yes, Liam. So hopefully you're feeling better. That was probably like too much information. So sorry, Liam. Okay, another one from Tara, rabbit hole, completely unrelated to anything I was supposed to be researching. Isn't it always the way? A report of bigamy by an RIC officer traced the story and the records and discovered the son of a bigamous marriage became, from memory, the head of the National Museum of Ireland. All now dead, so no scandal. Yeah, that's just, I love that. That's a, yeah, isn't it always the way? Like, somebody will mention something to you and suddenly there's this little thing in your brain that goes, family history records, newspapers, must go and look. And then before you know it, you've missed dinner, it's gone dark, and it's 3 a.m. in the morning, and it's nothing to do with your family tree. But we're all in good company. We all do that. We all do it. Okay, dog licenses are the best. Yeah, I quite like them. Ellen says, no breakthroughs, but little bits about my Kirby family. The fire in their meat market a year before my 3rd great-grandfather died in 1855, the subsequent swindling of his wife in a land deal, and then the rescue and marriage to another 3rd great-grandfather. Still haven't got any further back, but they are quite the hard luck crew. Such a shame, isn't it? Some of our ancestors were really, really put through the ringer. I'm glad I live now, basically. Okay, I'm flicking back through. Also, Chris and Martin should be here very, very shortly. So please, if you do have any questions for them or comments, please add them in and I will try and bookmark them so we can come back to them afterwards. Okay. Flicking through. Okay, Sue says, found the death of my 2-times great-grandfather in Ireland. He died after being struck by the shaft of a cart. See, that's the thing. You probably, if you'd found his burial record, it probably wouldn't have said that. If you'd found his civil death record, it might say it. Equally, if you order the certificate, it might say it. It might say something like death by misadventure. But that newspaper's just given you that extra little bit of information. But how sad. Andrew says, I followed a chap with an interesting name who married a distant cousin. forever in the papers. He started a charity for the blind in Leicester and was big in the Shepherds organisation. I have to know what this name is now, Andrew. Please, can you pop it into the comments? I want to know what the name was. I sometimes do that as well. If I come across an interesting name of somebody who married a relation of mine, and because they're not really my ancestor, the people with the interesting name, but because they've got an interesting name and they crop up a lot, I'm just like, why were you so, why did you appear in the newspaper so much? I just have to know. It's like curiosity killed the cat with me, I swear. I can't pronounce your username. I'm so sorry. Naughty me. I found my 5th great grandfather, Captain Edward Zealand. He served with Admiral Nelson. That is a cool find. I love that. I have to hear more about that. Please add more. Please add more. I want to know more. Hi, Paul. So Paul says, I couldn't find what happened to my maternal grandmother's father. His surname was quite common, just Thompson, and there are a few death records it could be, but I found that he killed himself in 1909. Oh, that's what you found in the newspapers. But yeah, as you say, that's exactly why you couldn't find him. Oh, that's really sad. That's really sad. But I'm pleased you got the closure, I suppose, and please you did find out what became of him. Joe says, my 3 times great grandfather on my dad's side died in 1891. When I got his death certificate, originally said unknown in the name section, and then was amended following an inquest. Cause of death was accidentally run over. I found a newspaper report in the Leicester Chronicle under the title Fatal Accident at Shepherd's Wake. Shepshead? Yeah, Shepshead's Wake, excuse me. And it gave a great description of what he was wearing and even what he had in his pockets. That's just so sad. And this is sometimes the thing with newspapers, particularly Victorian newspapers. They were quite sensationalist, some of them, and the more dramatic, scandalous or shocking, the better for them, really, because you might find more of that, particularly in the Illustrated Police News, which is a newspaper that I will promote until the end of my days, merely for its entertaining, shocking, and often comedic value. Victoria says, whilst looking for my great aunt, I instead came across an article about my great grandmother. Quite shocking, as the more I read the article, I found out she'd been overdosed. She had overdosed on salts, not by accident, and been suffering from an illness and bouts of depression. Although this upset me, the article provided lots of details like her address, her neighbour, her husband, and her son's names. I just want to find out what her illness was. Oh. These are just very sad stories. But again, you've got that information now. And if you didn't have that, there'd just be question marks hanging over all of this. Okay, I've got lots of other comments. I'm not quite caught up, I'm afraid. I'm just waiting on Chris. Martin was already waiting. I can see him. You can't see him, but I can see him. Chris is here now. Wonderful. Right, I'm going to do one more question of the week while Chris and Martin get ready, and then we can talk more newspapers, basically. So let's pick one more question of the week. Let's do this one. Hello, Kate. I found a fascinating article about arson committed by somebody with a surname I was researching. Went down a rabbit hole and found all of the articles about it and made a chronological, that's a really hard word to say. I'm not going to bother. Subsequent research at a later date showed this was actually my 3 times great grandmother. Oh gosh, that's a find and a half, Kate. That's a find and a half. The fact that you later worked out that this person that you just thought had an interesting story with a surname that you were researching, and it turned out to be your 3 times great grandmother. That's cool. I mean, not cool in terms of, committing arson, but it's a cool story. Okay, there are loads more here that I just haven't got to. Please feel free to keep adding them. But what we're going to do now is, if I remove my slides, I'm going to bring on my guests for the day. Are you ready for my special guests? You will be familiar with Chris Brake, Head of Data Products. Hi.
Hi, guys.
And can I also introduce Martin Stocks, who is your title Principal Product Manager?
It is, yeah.
It is. There you go. Welcome to Friday's Live, Chris and Martin. Thank you so much for joining us today. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Chris, could you introduce yourself and what you do at Findmypast? And then Martin, nobody will be familiar with you, so then you can do it.
Hi, yeah. So those of you who were here for the newspaper presentation back in June, I was speaking then with another colleague. Essentially, I look after all of the data products at Findmypast. So all forms of search and hinting across records, searching trees, searching newspapers. And so I look after all the people, all the teams who look after that stuff, basically.
Thank you.
Cool. I'm Martin. Hi. You haven't met me before because I'm relatively new to the newspaper group here at Findmypast. I've worked at Findmypast a long time. I worked mostly on the family tree products and all kinds of fun stuff like that. But now working over here, I'm having some fun times with Chris and getting a bunch of cool stuff built. So, hi.
Lovely. Thank you. Chris, I'm going to give you a second to make sure that you've got your slides uploaded and prepped.
I think they should be. I'm sharing them. They should be.
Oh no, I can see them there. I've got them. Yes, that's fine. Lovely. Well, I will hand over to you guys. We're going to basically delve into now, basically all the cool stuff that these guys have been working on in newspapers and basically trying to make searching newspapers even easier and even more fun for all of you. So, Chris, over to you.
Cool. Thank you. So we've done the introductions. We're going to have a quick recap. Talk about what's new since we last spoke, have a demo of the new things, talk about what's next, and then we'll have kind of wrap up on some questions. We've done the introduction with us, so we'll skip over that one. Sweeney Todd, those of you who remember here last time might remember that my interesting historical connection at the time was the Dam Busters, where it turns out that the room all of our newspapers are now scanned in, at the British Library North site in Boston Spa, is on the site where the bouncing bombs were made, and was probably a room where they transited through before they were loaded onto the trains at the railhead. So that was the connection today. But now, new connection. Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street, penny dreadful story from the early 19th century. We have just moved office in London, and our office is the same address as Sweeney Todd. It is 186 Fleet Street on the corner of Hen and Chicken Court. And so Sweeney Todd's barbershop, where he sliced people's throats and turned them into meat pies, is the site of our London office. Anyway, that's enough trivia for today. Quick recap. FMP newspapers launched nearly 10 years ago. Over 70 million pages, big partnerships now with the British Library especially and Reach Media. Huge program of improvements underway. It's been going since about last July. The first real drop of functionality was with the new newspaper search in April, but since then the pace has picked up and there's lots of things dropping out. So we're putting a lot of effort into making our newspaper product great. Now, quick recap of last time, where I talked a lot and was allowed 2 little bits of jargon. Ellie was very strict about the jargon usage. But we talked about a bunch of things then. We talked about our new newspaper search. We talked about precision and recall, the challenge of finding all of the articles that might exist in the archive versus just finding the one that precisely match your search. We talked about the challenge of the newspapers being unstructured data, as opposed to all of our records, which are highly structured things to search. We talked about the challenges of OCR and the quality of the text that we extract from the newspapers, especially if they're microfilm. We made the point, and I'm going to emphasize again, that when we're searching here, we have no awareness of language. We read a newspaper and we know that things are names and things are places, and we can read the language. Searching newspapers doesn't do that. And we talked a little bit about word stemming and phrase slop, which Ellie insists I should call phrase flex. Phrase flex. Okay, we'll call it phrase flex. And we got some tips. Anyway, I'm not going to go over all of that again, sure. But just to remind you, when I talk about no awareness of language, this is what I mean. Okay, this is a little paragraph of text about the Bluebell Railway in southern England. Okay, I could no more tell you which bits of this talk about the Bluebell Railway or anything else than fly. Okay, if you gave me a string of these characters, I could go through this and find characters that match, but I wouldn't know what they mean. I wouldn't know this was a name, this was a place, this was the description of the railway, whatever. Okay, and that is what a newspaper search is doing. It doesn't have an understanding of language. It doesn't have an understanding of entities. It's just doing pattern recognition on words. Now, there's a lot of sophistication you can put on that to make it look like it's sort of understanding language, but it's not. And so it's always worth just bearing in mind that's ultimately what's happening here. It's not actually smartly interrogating the language. It's just pattern matching. Anyway, what's new? Well, if you've been using newspaper search, you will have noticed, I'm sure, some of these. Perhaps not all, and the latter one probably not, because it's only dropped yesterday. The image viewer is new and shiny, and we think it's great, and the feedback's generally pretty good. I don't think it was Chinese, Matthew. I think it was Korean. You can clip articles and take particular clips out of a newspaper page and share them and add them to your tree. We've launched advanced search about a month ago now, which is very much intended as an expert user product, and the expert users using it are very impressed with it. And we've improved the name handling, much better name handling. And then we'll go to that. Quick question, Indian newspapers, regional and kind of coverage filtering is in the pipeline. We need to kind of do some work on the index to get that coverage in there. But yeah, over the next 6 months, some point, something of that ilk will arrive. So again, those of you who were around might remember we talked about my great granduncle, Timothy Francis Brake. Useful case for this because he was documented a lot in newspapers, and he appeared in a lot of newspapers because he was an orphan in an orphan school and in the military a lot. And here we go. Interesting. I just read the comment about the British Newspaper Archive site. That's an interesting comment because what we built had the explicit purpose of being at least as good as that and better, because obviously we run the British Newspaper Archive site as well, so we know exactly how that works, and that was the benchmark we set ourselves to be at least as good, if not better. So anyway, let's take a look at newspaper search. Okay, now last time we did this, I would have said, oh, just search on Timothy Brake, because if you start using Timothy Francis Brake or any of his titles, it will throw a spanner in the works, and it would have done. But as of yesterday morning, no more. If you put Major Timothy Francis Brake in here, it will search for Timothy Brake. It will search for Major Timothy Francis Brake. It will search for Timothy F. Brake. It will search for Major Timothy Brake. It will do all the sensible things. And then down here at the bottom, you'll find it's just got the Timothy Brake. So it actually now will take all that content and interpret both titles and middle names and do sensible things with them. So it can basically, it does a kind of compound search across this. But it can ignore titles, but prioritize results that have them. It can ignore middle names, but prioritize results that contain them. So basically here says, well, you know, look, the keywords in here are Timothy Brake. That's what I have to have in the must include, but I'm going to prioritize results that also include other stuff. Okay. And it also means that you can now start doing things like this, multiple compound names. So if, in this case, Timothy Francis Brake, Annie Elizabeth Wilson, you want to look, and they were, as it turns out, both school colleagues at Bluecoat School in Birmingham. And so you can see the middle names are not present in this article. In the web, you've got Annie E. Wilson, you've got Timothy Brake. In here, a listing of school results. Okay, so, you know, lots of potential there. Basically, multiple names was always a very powerful way to search. Now you can just insert the middle names and the search engine will do something sensible with those middle names as well. And we have advanced search. Now, generally, the feedback from the expert forums we've been to with this has been extremely positive. Jen Baldwin, who I'm sure is a regular here, was with a gang of professional genealogists in Salt Lake last week, and they were completely bowled over by this. And they were kind of the quotes for things like, oh, this completely changes the game. I want to go back and redo all of the newspaper searches I've done for several years because this is just so powerful. The way it works, and it sort of starts from coming with from the British Newspaper Archive. So you have the kind of concepts of names, keywords, and phrases, but we've taken it a good deal further. So names, again, it's all optional. You don't have to put a name in there, but if you have a name that is a person's name, it's a good way to put it in there because it will do sensible, quite clever things about how it handles the text. If it's not a name, don't put it in there. We can see what people search, right? And plenty of people put normal keywords in there, and that's just not going to work very well, frankly. So I wouldn't do that. It's for names. It's specifically optimized for names. If it's not a person's name, don't put it in that box. Put it somewhere else. Keywords. And again, what you've got here in the keywords is the kind of core concepts, exactly as you find in BNA, really, of must include, must exclude. And what will be classed in the BNA as may include, but in reality is about prioritizing results which include. Okay, there's a subtlety about how the BNA does this that we've kind of made more explicit and I think make it more powerful. So basically, anything you put in the keywords must is going to have to be in the article, only things that include it will be there. Exclude, obviously, will exclude things. Prioritize results just basically said, if this word is in the article, bring this to the top of the results list in terms of relevance. You can do that for words, and you can do it for phrases. So, and you can put in as many phrases as you like, and this is a big gain over BNA. In the BNA, you can search for a phrase. Here, you can search for as many phrases as you like, and for each one of those phrases, you can, again, say it must be there, it must exclude, or prioritize results which include. Okay, and as well as that, you can type your phrase here and you have phrase flex. Okay, so you can either say, well, a phrase flex of 0 must be exactly that phrase, or near to that phrase, you know, that word, that phrase, but maybe with the order slightly changed, or maybe with a couple of extra words added in. Okay, you've got a specific date range filter on here. Obviously, you can put in titles, publications, counties, places, and these are multiple selections, right? So you can put in as many titles as you like. It's not tying it down to one. So it's hugely, hugely flexible. And the thing that we rather like, we worked hard to make it include, is that all of this complexity in the form, you can, if you want, and you get sophisticated, just write in syntax. Okay, so here you've got minus Patricia. We'll exclude the word Patricia. Hashtag Bluecoat School will prioritize results. That's what the hashtag does. A phrase, that's what the quotes are for. Bluecoat School with a phrase flex of 2, tilde 2. And you can build up as many phrases and keywords as you like in that form, and they will always be represented in here in this long form syntax, which if you want to just quickly edit and type in there, you can do that. They are completely interchangeable. And if you just go in and type something into here in the syntax and you go to the advanced form, it will have populated the advanced form. Hugely powerful, hugely powerful. Okay. And now the image viewer. Well, again, if you've used this, you'll find the image viewer a pretty familiar thing, but it's actually now doing what a proper newspaper image viewer should do. It's much easier and smoother pan and zoom, which is good. It's got a whole bunch of image manipulation, color inversion. So if you're having problems with the colors, I saw a couple of comments there. You could just invert them. It's probably a pretty good way to go for that. Here, so you can read white on black, which helps a lot for some people. If you're having other problems, you can change the contrast or the saturation. You can adjust this very much to kind of, you know, whatever works for you in terms of color and inversion. So again, to help with people there, absolutely take a look. All those tools in there. You've got a reel of the whole issue. So you can very easily just scroll through, see in a thumbnail view all of the pages of the issue. You can turn on or off the highlighting of the terms you've been searching on. You can take a view as a book, as if you were reading the newspaper. You can actually kind of, you know, go through the whole thing, a couple of pages at a time, as if it was right in front of you in an open book. Okay. So go back to the original page and re-highlight the terms. You know, the kind of stuff you'd expect, and all the information for the paper is just up here, by the way, the actual title and the publication date and copyright and all that jazz. And the thing we're really pleased about here is now the clipping feature. So if you find a clipping like this about, in this case, Timothy Francis Brake's promotion from Sergeant Major to Lieutenant, you can highlight that bit of the newspaper, you can clip it, you can download that in high res, you can just copy it, and you can add it, of course, to your tree. Timothy Francis Brake, here's a list of his promotion, add, done. And now it's in his media, it's in the tree as a clipping for him. Fine. Okay. I'm sorry that it doesn't work for you, Chris. We do a lot of testing with our users on all these image viewers, and you know, it was a very positive response we got to the viewer. So obviously it doesn't work for you. I'm sorry, but you know, we do test these things very thoroughly with lots of users. Okay, that's the image viewer. That's all the new features, really. We talked about better name handling. We talked about advanced search. We've talked about clipping. We talked about the image viewer. Does the clipping include the reference? It includes the title. And it also, we did a little bit of a jazz here, that if you download it, it does give the downloaded file a clip, a sensible name. So the clip will be named title, date, page, Army and Navy Gazette, 8th and 9th of whatever, November 1894, page 14. So you get a properly formatted named file that is useful. Again, that was from some of the experts we talked to. Actually, that was a key step in the workflow, is making sure the file name is useful for people. Cool. So that's everything from the new features. And I'm going to step back to the slide deck. And we'll go into what's next. Okay, so there's three big things coming now. Social sharing of newspaper finds, collections, and some work we've been doing on family notices. Okay, so finally, I'm going to let Martin take the reins for a minute, because he's now in the lead on the social sharing and collections work. So over to Martin on social sharing.
Thank you, Chris. So I get the kind of a pretty fun job. So I get to give you a sneak peek of stuff which is coming. And actually, talking about the clipping tool segues quite nicely into the first thing that we're going to talk about, which is around clipping social sharing. So Chris just showed you how to do a clipping, and you've seen the add to tree and download options and everything else. But one of the things we think is really powerful, and one of the things our users tell us all the time, is that actually the discoveries you make in newspapers are super relevant and super shareable. And they want to kind of go shout about these things to friends and family and relatives, because sometimes they're really funny or really interesting or a bit bonkers or just really crazy, and people want to share it. So we're introducing the ability, in addition to what the clipping tool currently does, to share this more socially. So when you make a clipping, as you've just seen to do it, in the next few weeks when this goes live, you will have additional options. So we'll pre-bake in your ability to post a newspaper clipping into Facebook or into Twitter or into Instagram, if you have any of those accounts. And you can see on the screen here, it's little, but you can see hopefully kind of how this a Facebook post of a clipping will look. You'll get your Facebook post will have a preview of that clipping, and you'll be able to click through and view it. You'll also be able to copy and paste that using a URL. So you can then paste that into a WhatsApp channel or into an SMS or any other form that you might want to choose, and share that. And if we go to the next slide, anyone who then kind of receives that or wants to view that clipping will now land in a bespoke clippings page. So a clippings page will be unique to that individual clipping. It will be completely free to view. So anyone who wants to view it won't even need to register to view the page. And they'll land on a page which looks, again, like it's a little bit small, and depending on the size of your screen, a little bit small in the preview here, but you'll be able to see the clipping that the person who's made, and you'll be able to open that up and view that clipping and read it at full screen view. You'll also get some kind of core metadata around that clipping. So you'll be able to see what newspaper it came from, what date, what page it appeared on. And if you have access to our newspaper, if you have a subscription and you have access to our newspapers, you'll be able to click through and actually view that in page, in situ. So there's a bunch of stuff in here. You can also share it onwards and things like that. So it's a really big step in terms of making our newspaper archive and the discoveries that you're making in newspapers much more accessible, much more shareable, and having that more baked into our product. But it's also importantly kind of step one towards.
Sorry, just Martin, just before we go,
Sorry,
a couple
Chris,
of questions. Legally, this is fine. You know, we can't do this kind of stuff without fully checking with all of our copyright people and legal teams, and this is all absolutely fine to do this. We're not actually doing anything that newspapers.com don't do. But no, this is all legally completely fine. We obviously have to check this is all right before we do it. We don't just kind of make this stuff up and discover afterwards we can't. So no, it's all completely fine.
Exactly. And as the comment in there says, the clippings page also contains all of the copyright information and our partner licensee information and everything else. So it's all completely above board. But it's step one towards a number of different things. One will be an archive that you can view of all the clippings that you've made individually and potentially even shareable more broadly. But also takes us into the foundation of the second thing I'm going to talk to you about, which is collections. So if we move to the next slide, hopefully it'll appear here. Yes, so collections is at a much earlier stage of its development. But you probably should think about it kind of, Chris uses the kind of like Pinterest for papers or Instagram for editorial. It's the idea in its simplest terms of bringing together like-themed clippings that you may have brought together and curating collections of those. Now, the use cases of this are numerous and broad. It could be that you're doing research yourself on a specific theme. Maybe it's a person in your family, or just a collection of all the newspaper references you can find for your maternal or paternal line. But it doesn't have to be family history related. It could be generalized historical research, or it could be content themed, whether you're particularly interested in fashion from the 70s or Bigfoot sightings from the 1900s onwards. There's all kinds of things that all of us are interested in putting together. And today we don't really offer a tool for that. You can find the clippings, you can make the clippings. There's no way of bringing them and organizing them and presenting them, frankly. So that's what the collections product is designed to serve. It will support themed research. You will be able to do things like tagging. You'll be able to curate, and there'll be various different presentation views depending on what you want to use those collections for. So, for example, you might have it for your own research, and you might want quite a dry list view of just organizing your work, but you might also want to share it. And we'll have much more visual presentation views that you might want to share on social and things like that. And then we'll also start to support the more research-minded kind of side of things. We will also bring in the kind of exportability, citation management, and all of that as well. So collections will become a kind of a catch-all for lots of different things that you might want to do with newspaper clippings. And then you'll be able to share that socially. You'll be able to view it yourself, obviously. And as we build this out, the idea will be that hopefully we'll have also kind of a Findmypast collections library that you can publish to and share your research, share your findings, share your discoveries with the broader Findmypast community. So that's really a snapshot of what we're thinking. It is in its early stages. I don't have any real designs or anything to show you today. But over the next few months, we should be at a point where we can start putting the earlier stages of this product out and doing user testing with you guys, and also hopefully get to a point where there's a product live, which will be a starting point as we start to build out the functionality here. So that's where a snapshot really of collections. I'm going to hand back to Chris now to talk to you about family notices.
Yeah, cool. And Karen, yeah, I mean, thank you. We know lots of people use our resources for lots of things other than building a family tree and family history. Newspapers especially. Places are very common. There's lots of kind of one-name studies. There's lots of local history societies. There's lots of particular events and lots of kind of military history stuff. And so we wanted to make something that could do with newspapers what people want to do with them, which is exactly this, kind of just collections of clippings around a historical theme, around a place, around a particular research topic, to structure them, as you would like, and to tag them as you would like, and share them. Because lots of these collections are, there's lots of societies and collaborative groups out there that look at local history. We'd like to have these in a way that are easily shareable without that, in that kind of group. So that's important. So that will be coming over the next 3 to 6 months. And the other thing that I'm excited about that we've been quietly beavering away at, genuinely some of our smartest engineers tackling this problem because it's really difficult, is to automatically extract content from family notices. I'm sure you've all looked at family notices in the newspapers. There are a lot of them, and I mean a lot. We have looked at our archive, and conservatively there are hundreds of millions of names in family notices in that newspaper archive. Okay, now just to give you a scale, the 1921 census that obviously everybody found hugely useful, 29 million names. We're talking about at least 10 times that number of names, probably more. Lots of it from areas that we don't have good coverage. Things like the Scottish civil indexes aren't available, but there's lots and lots of family notices from Scotland. And we're going to extract this data into structured record events. So rather than just searching on names, as you might do now, we're actually going to say and do the trick. So the starting point is what you can see on the left here, which is 71 million pages that look like that with a bunch of text. Okay. A large number of them contain things that look like this notice of a marriage between Miller and Hill, with lots of information about the marriage. What we are going to do, and this has to be done automatic by computer, by artificial intelligence, essentially, because humans couldn't possibly do this at scale. Go through all those newspaper pages, find the notices, and extract from that little block of text all of the details as a structured event. The people, their surnames, their forenames, their relations to each other, the place of the event, the date of the event, the relationships between each other. So you end up with something like this. Miller Bryce at Imperial Hotel on the 8th of October 1942 by the Reverend Jenkins, David Scott, son of Mr. and Mrs. Miller, to Margaret Horsburgh, daughter of Mrs. George Bryce, becomes a record of David Scott Miller marrying Margaret Horsburgh Bryce on that date, in that place, with that officiant, and we are targeting by the end of the year to have many, many tens of millions of these as records. And that the point is then you can search them as records, and they'll be hintable as records into the tree. In this structured data, you can look for marriages between people, you can look for relationships between people. All that stuff that makes searching records so accessible and powerful will be coming to handle the family notice data. Okay, so we're very excited about that, and you'll start to see the first of those appearing on the site fairly soon. Initially, there'll be a limited volume because this will be a kind of processing pipeline that will take months to run through the entire archive. But over the course of months, we'll be dropping, say many tens of millions of names into the data sets derived from this stuff, which I think is going to be really exciting. Cool. So that's newspapers, what's new and what's coming. Any questions that people want to fire at this point?
We've taken a few already, which is great. Thank you so much for everybody for sharing your thoughts and feedback. Yeah, it's just amazing the amount of passion that we see for a product like this. It's just wonderful. I do say, so there's Jenny, for example, saying it's a mystery to you. I do definitely recommend drop us an email into customer support, and we'll see if we can give you some sort of one-on-one advice, and we'll get you searching newspapers, because they're just such an amazing resource, and I'm really upset that you're going to be missing out if you're having trouble with them. But let us help, basically. As Karen says, lots of us do place research, exactly, because we have the family tree if you want to look at your ancestors. But if you're looking at something else, if you're looking at place research, or people who served in the army from your town in the First World War, for example, the tree might not be the best thing to do that with. But if you've got something like collections, that might be even better for you. Okay, yes. Thank you very much, guys, for joining us. It's been really, really great to have you both here, Chris and Martin. Any closing remarks?
I don't think so. Other than to emphasize, the point that everything we release is pretty extensively tested with a wide range of users. So we don't, I mean, we sort of see comments on social sometimes that we just kind of sit in an ivory tower. We don't. Everything that goes out is thoroughly tested with lots of users, and you can't please everybody. So there will always be some people who aren't pleased, but by and large, we go with the stuff that researches and tests well with users, and we always do that, right? And so that's a learning for us. And when things get some widespread negative feedback, we adjust them, as we did with the newspaper search results format back in April. So we do listen really, really hard to this community, especially.
Martin, anything from you at all before we head into our company meeting last thing on a Friday?
No, just what Chris said. And if any of you had the pleasure of, or I had the pleasure of talking to any of you guys around our advanced newspaper search, you'll know that we talk to people not just before, but also after, gather feedback, always listening. The other thing, Chris, I just wanted to make sure we definitely covered off is the family notice work is going to be hintable as well, right? So we're going to be able to send you hints on that record, those records as well. So it's just another really powerful.
Yeah, it's having the structured event of multiple people that makes it hintable. So currently just hinting off a name and a place is not good, because you can never be specific enough. But once you have 2 or 3 people with different names and their relationships to each other, you've got enough information to start making reliable hints. For sure, that's going to start appearing.
I've been following that project for a while now, so I'm very excited to see it come to fruition. We'll leave it there, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for your enthusiasm for newspapers, and go and have a play this weekend. And if you have trouble, drop us a quick email and we'll get you back on the right track. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you very much, and we will see you next time.